Yeah, good morning, everyone. Jesus Omeka Naya, and we also will be Omeka Naya. We are going to be like our Father in heaven. Good morning, everyone. Today is the 27th day in the month of May 2026, and we are excited to be back here again with all of us this morning, even as we commence our devotional. And our devotional today is going to be we're going to be kicking off something different, same trajectory that we have been, and we are going to continue to learn, continue to re-emphasize the things that we are learning about the post-exile story. Today we're going to be singing a song, and that's why I just love the way the worship song went this morning. And the theme for today is remembering God's faithfulness. Remembering God's faithfulness. We are still in the grand theme of the post-exile, but we're going to be jumping into the book of Psalms, Psalm 126, a psalm that was written just about that time, around that time, by people at that time. It's a very, very popular song. I was looking for our church version of that song, Men Who Dream. And I couldn't find where the recording was. I have wanted to play it this morning. But Psalm 126, verse 1, just few verses, about 6 verses. So it's a very short song. And they said, when the Lord restored the fortune of Zion, or when the Lord brought back the captives from Zion, depending on the translation you are reading. Say, we are like men who dreamed. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we are like men who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongue with songs of joy. Then it was said amongst the nation, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. Restore our fortune, Lord, like streams in the Negev. Those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying seeds to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them, like men who dream. So as we conclude this profound reflection series, and our transition is going to move from that, from the specific narrative, like we've been doing in the book of Malachi, and on in the book of Haggai. So we are going to move from that specific narrative of that post-exilic prophet to this grand anthem, we call it, of the returnees. There's a grand anthem. I know if there's a country who does a lot of singing when they are going through a lot of trials, are the South Africans. And the Igbos actually do that also. And that's why you find a lot of the Igbo films, the movies, there's always songs that are accompanied, especially when something terrible happens. They are usually accompanied. So it's just part of the culture and everything. The Indians is more of dancing and everything, but they're usually songs that accompany everything. So the Jews were also told they wrote songs about everything, okay, and because they want to remember. So today, as we are remembering God's faithfulness, we're going to use Psalm 126. So this is what I would call a theological soundtrack. Like we have a lot of soundtrack that was done after the Civil War. Most of the songs you are going to hear, that's if you know what I'm saying. So some of the big timers in those days were people like Nnamdi Olebra. For some of you who know, Nnamdi Olebra, Harcourt White, and most of their songs were reflective of the war. In fact, there's a particular one they did about the war, the sounds of the guns of the war. So this is like the soundtrack of that thing. And then after, in the 70s, many soundtrack we're also talking about either liberation, either redemption, or singing about other countries that needed to come. Top of my list would be Sonny Okoson. I still have the original phonograph, Fire in Soweto. Sonny Okoson, Fire in Soweto. And because we have people like Fela, we now have people then the 80s was the season of what do you call it, reggae music. The humans were very popular in the 80s, 80s, then 90s, 80s, 90s, Raskimolo, Oris Wiliki, the Mandators. So you could see how the anthem of those times reflected the season. And of course, by the time you hit the early 90s, late season, music, if you're in Lagos, music began to have residency in a particular area. So I know the history. It was time I wrote a piece in a jazz club that I actually belong to. I belong to Lagos, jazz club. Then I wrote a piece. Somebody called me up immediately. I was like, wow, we need to publish this thing. And I meant to publish it, but I lost the original piece where I began to locate the music. There were a particular area that began to grow. Ajegule began to grow, okay, influenced by reggae. They began to form their own style of music. Then in the Yoruba music, it was Mushin, then it was Lagos Island. Those things were there. Then Agege too was there. Agege, Mushin, Akpala music, Fuji music, Juju music, they were around that area. Then Surreal burst out in the I think it was like 1996, 97. Surreal began to come out. People like OJB Jezreel were there. Then of course we have the what do you call it? What do you call it? Festac Town with the Plantation Boys, then the Satellite Town, the Sati Boys, began to come. So music in Lagos was now regionalized. But right now, most musicians who make it are now moving out to the island. Bariga was there also. Bariga was the home of Akbala music. So this is a song, what we just read now. This is a song for travelers who are looking at the massive. It's a song of ascent. As you are singing it, you are moving. So there's a rhythm to it. And so travelers who were walking about and they were looking at the massive stone walls of this newly built temple. And they are realizing that, wait a minute, what is going on here? We are standing, inside a miracle. Some years ago, this thing was not there. This was a miracle. And if you look at what the Bible used there, and we're going to be looking at what's like laughter, what's like dreaming, what's like everything, so the laughter of the liberated, that's what you will see. I want you to imagine that day that Nelson Mandela was declared the president of South Africa. People were in tears. It's like the older people who never thought they would live to a time when they will have a fellow black man, who were the majority, by the way. And there were a lot of people who went to vote for the first time in their life. They were in their 60s, in their 70s. They went to vote for the first time in their life. And of course, remember the time of Barack Obama coming in. People like Jesse Jackson was in tears. These were people who marched with Martin Luther King, to see a black man coming to be the president. Well, you can call him a mixed race. He was not totally black. He was mixed race. But of course, he identified as black and his wife also as black. So the laughter of this liberation. So in that Psalm 102:26, that also captures this. It was a dual emotional reality of these people. It was a dual emotional reality. Think about it. The opening verse, look back. And if you know dates like me, I'm a historian. The opening verse was looking back to 538 BC. They were looking back when King Cyrus issued that decree. And that decree, Cyrus the Great, the signet ring of God, when King Cyrus issued that decree, allowing the Jews to return back home, they were looking back when the captives were set free, when the Lord set the captive free. So they look back. Then, secondly, and physiologically, then there's a sudden shift from Babylon, looking back, captives, to now Judean freedom. It was so overwhelming. That was so overwhelming, that the people felt that They were actually dreaming. In Hebrew, they'll call it shalom or kalam, something like that. Shalom. It was like, it's a dream. We look back, how many years ago was that? And look at us right now. We have our temple. They were like men who dream. And I pray that is going to be your story today. That when you look back, I don't know how far that will be. For me, some of you, maybe 1 year, maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years. Then you look now, you are going to be like men who dream. Then they don't look at economically. Now look at physiologically, so socially. Then you look at the internal, the internal return, that followed by this immense hardship. Because when they came back, they didn't have anything. Okay, people were trying to scramble to build their panel houses, so they couldn't. They were just managing. There was immense hardship. Remember that drought? They will plant much, they will harvest very small, and there was opposition happening even at that time. The very reality, that we were unpacking in Haggai, that we were unpacking in Zechariah. So fast forward, we were like, wow, we have done so well. God has done so much for us. So this text will move all of us seamlessly. You see how, as we are looking at verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, it moves seamlessly from this overjoyed laughter, of what happened in the past, to now a role of present prayer for economic and seasonal, irrigation. So they moved from laughter, we're like, man, our hearts were filled with laughter. They now moved down to, I beg God, restore our fortune, O Lord, like the stream in the Negev. When you look at your past, and you look at your present, you see that you've come so far. And for many of us, you cannot but just pray, God, please look at how we have come. Please restore our fortune. Now, let's talk about the Negev. I don't know if you look at the Old Testament, some of the Moses, you hear things about the Negev. The Negev is actually a desert region south of Judea. Judea by the east is the Jordan River, by the west Mediterranean Sea, by the north is the Golan Heights, Lebanon. Then and it tapers this way. The Negev is just a desert area. That's where Moab is. That the desert area. So what normally happens? That place is dry, but they normally have river beds in that place, and it remains very, very dry. That is the Dead Sea area. But occasionally, suddenly, there's always what they call flash floods. Flash floods will happen in that winter rain, and of course, because they were in a valley, winter rain, then flood will just come all of a sudden. Then it now restores life. That was what they were thinking about. So when you are reading it, when you look about the Negev, what's their Negev? Restore the fortune. They are praying for flash flood. They are praying for that ojo, to come, like Yoruba would say, just to come. So this psalmist was, it reminds every builder, all of us, we are builders here, or rebuilders, as we'll be calling ourselves, rebuilders here, that the same God who brought the flash floods of deliverance to us in the past, maybe in recent past, maybe in the past, is faithful enough to irrigate the dry soil of the current endeavor that we have. So you have to understand the meaning of that song. Okay, the meaning of that song, that it was God that brought that flash flood. They were thinking about, God, please restore it again. We want it. It was very rare. It comes occasionally. They were very, very rare. So some truths that we can glean out for us today. After giving you that background of how it probably meant for the original hearers and the singers of that song, I want all of us to know today that as rebuilders will look back, and you're going to see God's hand. Okay, everybody who's a rebuilder here, who is building or who is rebuilding as we are doing, all of us, my prayer and my confidence that all of us will look back. What you see the hand of God. They normally say that, what's that word again? Regret. I'm sure you must have heard me say it before here. Regret is defined as events you wish never happened. So anything you regret, you wish never happened. But my prayer is that all of us here today, we're going to look back. We're going to see God's hand. So the core discipline of an effective rebuilder for all of us here is a highly developed spiritual memory. You have to remember, because it's so easy to forget. As human beings, even in the New Testament, you just have to tell them, remember the Lord. Remember. The communion is for us to remember. Like Paul was writing to Timothy. The things you've heard me say, instruct to reliable my men. Instruct to reliable who are also to teach others. Titus, the reason why I left you here is so we are always constantly reminding people. Because if we don't remind ourselves, we are going to drift away, and it's so easy to forget. When God does something beautiful in your life, at that moment of joy, but sometimes 1 week, 1 month, you are back to panic mode. So these psalmists are declaring here for all of us, he said, when the Lord restores the fortune of Zion, we are like those men, women who dream. He said, then our mouth was filled with laughter. So when you are wrestling today, tomorrow, this week, with your daily friction, maybe you're managing projects where you're working, or you're managing projects at home, when you are navigating the market shifts that we have. I mean, these are just going, haywire in our community. Or maybe you are dealing with family details, family issues, maybe husband and wife, parents, and their children, in extended family. So it is always very, I would say, dangerously easy for us to develop amnesia. In fact, there was somebody I was talking to, I said, well, it's so easy to develop spiritual amnesia. And so what is amnesia? Forgetfulness. You will just backbay. And that's what happens. It's as if every episode is a brand new episode for us. We're not building on the past. We're not building like, wait a minute, God did that yesterday. So the same God who did that is they can do another one. But it's like when God does something beautiful in life, we raise it and throw it away. We don't remember. Then we're looking for a fresh new one with a different attitude. So you must intentionally, all of us must pause and look back over the architecture of your journey. Man, my journey is an incredible journey. I mean, when I say my journey, I mean like people weekly, what God does in my life, what I see, because I'm intentional in observing every day. I take account every day what God does every day. Before I sleep, I've thought about it. What did God do today? Every single day. So every week, and I'm amazed. Even on Sunday, I was sharing with a brother. I can tell you stories. What happens to me every week? You must be intentional. So when you audit your history, when you begin to look at your history, you will discover that, some of those near misses, near misses, is that a good English? Okay, some of those near misses in your life, that something almost happened to you. All those unexpected doors that were shut or they were open that you didn't know, and even the survival, of past exiles that you've been, maybe past exile where you went on broke, where you went to you almost lost your accommodation, where you went to you almost lost your car, where you went to whatever there, they are not just lucky breaks. They were explicit maneuver of God's hand. God was there. You have to believe that God was there. You have to believe. Some of you might not know. Last year, I believe this time last year, right? May. Was it June? This time last year, my father and I were driving back from the island in our Camry. And a Bullion van was, of course, driving rough, whatever. We're just on the right side, easily gisting. A Bullion van was driving. We saw a Bullion van, about two of them, went forward. Unknown to us, that Bullion van has hit another car, yanked the bumper of that car off, boom, and the car slammed the brake, and the one behind ran into that one. The third one ran into the second one. The fourth one ran into the third one. And we, without a boo, went in there. And it was very bad. Our car had to be towed away. You know how you watch a movie and the front of the car squashes? Headlights, bumper, radiator, fan, everything, bonnet, glass, that's like squashed. But we came out on her. In fact, the woman who had the car, because the car we ran into was an SUV, and we were driving a sedan. We ran into, she came out, she was like Jesus. She saw the floor. What she saw was the red liquid, the red, what do you call it, fan, the coolant that was there. She thought it was blood. We came out, no scratch, no anything. I was just silence. Just came out. look at, I mean, it was very, very bad. We had to just, last man came, we now called a towing vehicle. Last man helped us to call a towing vehicle. That was when I knew that even last man, they have their own towing vehicle, like their own guys that they work with for money. And our vehicle was towed. I was inside, that vehicle, while it was being towed all the way down to what do you call it? Yaba, where my mechanic was. And that car remained there for a while. And it cost a lot of money, to fix. Even till now, it hasn't still been problem. It been fixed, but till now, the gearbox too was affected and everything. But we were not lucky. It was God that saved us. When you think about that, you say, wow, God is working in our lives. It was not a near miss. It was God in action. So when I think of things like this, I have to make resolve. And I want all of us to think about all those things, the accidents that almost happened to you, the one that happened to you. And I resolve to cultivate a memory of gratitude. When I look back, my memory had to be memorable. When the captive, when they came back from Zion, when they look back, they say our mouth was filled with joy. Okay, you have to constantly be looking back. I want to constantly look back to trace the invisible hand of God that has been turning my historical crisis into platform for his glory. God has been doing incredible things in my life. When you look back, what do you see? Second thing I'm pulling out from that, especially in verse 2, again, it is the testimony of the outsiders. One is testimony of the insider. Say our mouth was filled with joy. Now the text also notes a striking cultural phenomenon. Now they don't usually record what the outsiders do. What the Psalms usually record is the terrible thing the outsiders do to them, the cursing, how they are persecuting them. But in verse 2, he said, then they will say amongst the nation, the people around will say, the Lord has done great things for them. People too will say, this can only be God. Think about it. Even when Nehemiah, was building the something that that took them a generation to build the wall, they finished it in weeks. And Bible said the fear of everybody called it, and they were like, this can only be God. Because humanly speaking, it is impossible. So the deliverance of this post-exilic remnant, it was so undeniable that even the pagan surrounding nations around them, who had historically they've mocked them, people who mocked them, who harassed them, who were forced to to do all kind of things. These people right now turn around and they themselves were now forced to acknowledge that the divine sponsorship of this thing has to be their God. So there's a divine sponsorship that is backing up what the Jews are doing. And I want you to also see your life. Your life is not as terrible as you think it is. My life is not as terrible as sometimes Satan wants me to think. My life is beautiful because I am under the hand of God. So your vindication, my vindication, is not designed to be private or to be hidden. People will see, people will know, people will acknowledge that God is the one working in your life. So when you remain faithful to God, when I remain faithful to God, and when we remain faithful to God's own pattern, his blueprint, God will begin to orchestrate that turnaround. God will begin to orchestrate it. God is one that will put in you. Listen, it is not God that does evil. God doesn't do evil. But God can walk even through things that are evil. God can walk even things that are evil. God can walk through even disappointment. God can walk through even heartbreak. God can walk through, read all the stories in the Bible, and you'll see that God has done the same thing and is doing the same thing in your life. So God orchestrates a turnaround. Why do you do it? So it does it so profound that even the secular observers, people who don't worship your God, your critics, those in your, let's say, your marketplace competitors, they will be forced to confess that God is the true architect of your success. They will tell you, I say, oh boy, come on, this will not be human hand. You got a contract. If only you know. If only you know. Would you do anything? I didn't do anything. No. Now God know. People will acknowledge on your behalf that this, you succeeded. People don't succeed, easily here. It has to be God. So when I get to that place, it just pumps me up, and I resolve to stand firm in my assignments. Tell God, tell yourself, I resolve today to stand for my assignment because I know that God is producing an undeniable turnaround in my life. And that turnaround will cause the world to magnify the name of God. People will praise God because of me. Tell yourself that people will praise God because of you. People because of me. People will see my life and they will say, man, there is a God. If I didn't believe there was a God before, I can see there's a God. God has been our deliverer. God has been our protector. God has been the one who our provider. God has been our benefactor, the one who takes care of us, who gives us. And the third thing I can see here, very, very quickly, is what I would call. Now let's talk a little about economics, and let me take a sip. It's what I would call the law of liquid harvest. Now it doesn't say there, but that is what I'm going to explain to you right now. The law of liquid harvest. You see, the Psalms that we just read, look at how it concludes. It concludes one of what I would say one of the most powerful laws of spiritual economics. And there's such a thing as spiritual economics, right? And there are so many part of them. Give and it shall be given to you. That's the spiritual economics, right? God loves a cheerful giver. That's spiritual economics. But here it said, those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. So he who goes out weeping, basically, he who goes out weeping, bearing seeds for sowing. Think about it. How do you sow in tears? I just want to be joyful when you're sowing. When you go out bearing seeds of sowing, Bible says you are going to come home with shouts of joy. You are going to bring in the sheaves with him. And I'm going to explain it to you. And some of you are going to realize that you are also going out with tears. Some of us here today, we are sowing with tears. So in this post-exilic, climate, what did they have? Remember, they were broke. They didn't have seed was scarce. And seed was very expensive. Remember, they just suffered droughts. There was the stock market, let's put it that way, it's not doing well. So the little they have, to now throw away the grain, that's basically what it is. To throw away the grain into dust of the earth, to go and plant it, while your children are hungry. This was an act of raw, agonizing sacrifice. That we can actually take this grain and mill it and eat it and survive. But we are going to take the little grain, we're going to put it into the dust of the earth, where there is no uncertainty, but we are hoping that this grain that we're putting in is going to sprout. So that is what it means, those who sow in tears. So this grain was sown in tears. Many of you, maybe you are paying your children's school fees in tears. Man, this money could have used to buy food, but you are sowing it in tears. Maybe you are paying your house rent in tears. Maybe you are paying, to do that contract in tears because you don't know what's going to happen. They are hopeful, but God guarantees that your emotional, your financial investment into His kingdom are never lost at all. So the tears of the rebuilder that we see here, those tears act as liquid fertilizer. So when you're sowing in tears, that's what I call the liquid fertilizer. Those are the liquid fertilizer over the seed of your obedience. You know you are doing this thing. You know you can take that money to go and buy food, but you're saying, oh, I made a commitment to pay my special contribution. You know that you could have taken that money to go and flex, to go and do something for yourself. But you say, oh, I'm giving this money because I want to give it to the service of God. That's what it means to sow in tears. You are sowing the seed of obedience. And the Bible says that God is going to ensure that your harvest will be heavy. And I pray that all of you today who are doing what is right, even when the community says it's wrong, it won't pay you, who are keeping their oaths, even when it hurts, who are keeping their integrity, even when people are laughing at you. God is saying you are going to have a harvest that is so heavy. Your harvest will be so heavy that you will return carrying dens of sheep on your supernatural multiplication of every single thing. It's going to be so big, and I want you to believe it. The Bible says without faith, it's impossible to please God. Because everybody who comes to God must first believe that he exists. Secondly, and there is a rewarder of everybody who earnestly seek him. As long as you are seeking God, believe that God has gotten your back. God is your reward. Things might not be looking good right now, but you know you are sowing with tears. Keep doing what is right in your parenting, in your marriage, in your business, in your community, in your Bible discussion. Keep sowing with tears. And as you do that, I want you to join me in affirming this morning that I resolve to sow my seed of time. The time that you use, you could have been sleeping extra, but you are here today. You are sowing that seed. You are sowing the seed of your capital, your money. You are sowing the seed of your discipline because you are holding yourself. You are a disciple. You are disciplined. Even when it is difficult season in your life, you do that because you are expecting the law of the harvest to return your tears into shouts of joy. So keep on sowing. How you use your time, you are sowing it into things that are good. You are sowing in your capital, your money. You are sowing your discipline. You are sowing every single thing. While the world is going, you could have gone to mess yourself up, but you are saying, I'm going to remain faithful. You could have gone to go and join the bandwagon, but you say you're going to, and you are doing it because, and it hurts. But I want you to continue. So I resolve today to keep sowing my seed of time, my seed of my money, my capital, and my discipline, even in difficult season, because I'm fully persuaded. I'm expecting the law of the harvest to return my tears into shouts of joy. You have to believe it. You have to know it, because without faith, it's impossible to please God. So when you read things like that in the Bible, you read, first of all, you read, you understand it in context. That's what we've been doing every morning. I hope you are paying attention. First, you read a script, then you understand it in context. What does that script mean for people at that time? Then you now look at what can it mean for you today, and how can you apply the principles that you are learning from it. Today, our call to action is for all of us to take time out today. Today, the 27th day. Today is midweek. I want you to take time out to write down maybe 3 ways that God has restored you this year. Me, my own, I go write book. What are the 3 ways that God has restored you this year? This is the 5th month of the year, between January, February, March, April, May. And in the next few days, May will be over. So do not let this lesson of this prosaic thing that we're learning, don't let it fade into this vague memory. Don't develop this spiritual amnesia where you can just be forgetting. Okay, I want you to open your journal today. And I want you to explicitly, okay, this is mine. Okay, I want you to explicitly recall 3 distinct areas, whether in your professional career, whether in your physical health, whether in your financial stability, or in your family relationship, anywhere where God has brought restoration, where God has brought healing, or where God has brought preservation to your life over the course of the past 5 months. Write it down. That was what the Jews did. That psalm that we just read was written as a memorial psalm. Whenever they are passing through Jerusalem, they are all like, wow, when the Lord brought the captive back to Zion, we are like men who dream. You know how someone become Allah or Unro, like the Igbos will call it? You're like, Shemon Lalani. It's like a dream. That is how your life will be. When God restores your fortune, it will be like a dream. Or like, pinch me. Am I saying? You'll be like a dream where you will see your bank accounts. You will see where you are living. If maybe you'll be having a dream, you want to move into your own house, you want to wherever, you will be like a dream. Because you're like, 2 years ago, who could have thought that you'll be living in your own house? 3 years ago, who could have thought that you have a degree? 4 years ago, who could have thought that you have a child? 10 years ago, who could have thought that you have a spouse? That is like men who dream. So we're going to go to God in prayer, and we have almost 20 minutes to our time today. But I want to hear your